Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Rouge Rugby podcast. My name is Dan Murphy, and with me always is the fantastic Derek Brissett and Stu Hardy. Gentlemen, happy Easter. You know, we're just around the corner. Spring is coming. We've got another week of rugby to talk about, another Arrows loss to talk about, which, I hope you guys are doing well, all things considered.
Yeah, I'm not doing too bad. I just want to say, like, what's happening here, guys? Like, the Arrows play one bad game, and like Arrows attire is just abandoned by all but me on this podcast.
Right there.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
it's also, I got my nifty painting.
And I've got blue and white somewhere.
All right. Okay, a lion. Yeah, Wolfpack and Lions, though, guys. Like, it's Arrow season right now. Gotta support the lads here.
I was feeling nostalgic.
At the very least, is a Quinn Nawadi jersey. If you tell me it's a Quinn Nawadi jersey, I'll let it slide on the Wolfpack one. Then.
It's 100% a Quinn Nawadi jersey.
Perfect.
100%.
Stu, there's no Canadians on the British and Irish Lions, so I don't think it's that cool.
I mean, there's red and white here, so I mean,
yes,
take what you can.
It's true.
The Northern Hemisphere, you know.
Wales always did wish that they were Canada. In all reality.
Yeah, sure. That's keep telling yourself that.
Yeah, that's why they all come here to coach our team.
I mean, boy. I think they were applying for the Wales job. They just saw red and white and were like, yeah, pretty much the same. And here they are.
And who knows what his vision's like, especially after that last game. All right, guys. Well, let's before we break down Toronto's loss to Utah, I want to talk about some latest news. And let's start with some news that is prevalent to the Arrows. Gaston Cortez has been suspended for 2 weeks. He has served one already against the game in Utah. From what reports say, it sounds like he, when the scrum half for Rugby ETL was in a vulnerable position, Cortez hit him with his knee, and I guess the ref deemed it violent enough to reward the red card. Again, no one's seen it. It's not recorded, so we have no idea what happened, right? But it's a shame, not a great way to start your time with MLR and the Arrows. But he's only got one more week to serve, and then he'll be back for the LA game. And the other red card suspension news is that John Polin's suspension was overturned. I guess they deemed it accidental after review, which makes sense.
The Free Jacks lodged a not a complaint. What's the word I'm looking for?
Appeal, I think is the word you're looking for.
Appeal.
Yeah, appeal. Yes. And it was ruled that because of the way Adam Ash was falling onto the ball and the actions taken, it was accidental more than intentional. I think the original ruling was that it was more accidental anyway, but there was more within the appeal that was in Poland's favor. So that explains why he was playing the past weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I think with the Cortez suspension, I mean, as someone that hasn't seen the video of it, it's tough to judge. I mean, you can, like, if you go back on the Rugby Network, you can pull up the game and the broadcast, and I think what was it, the 68th 69th minute, something like that. Like, you can see Cortez, it's like the wide angle, and you can see Cortez go into a ruck, and then the scrum half's hurt and the play stops immediately, but you can't actually see what happened, really. So it's a tough one to judge. Unfortunately, the Arrows are without him for one more game, so they got to go into DC without him now. As far as like the John Polin one, like, I 100% think that was a red card because he did kick somebody in the head. Although I guess, whatever mitigating factors they used to take off to reduce the suspension or eliminate the suspension, I'm completely fine with that. Because like, I don't think it was like a malicious thing.
No, but it still happened.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, he did kick somebody in the head. So I mean, the red card to me is fine.
So are you happy with like how things turned out, like serving the red card in game, but him also being able to come back?
I think
the next game.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of any league really having a rule of being like automatic suspension for a red card, as I think sometimes it's like, I think maybe like getting kicked out of the game. I think Poland deserved his red card and deserved to be kicked out of that game. Whether it's an accident or not, you did kick somebody in the head. And I think it follows the same line of like shoulder charges and stuff, right? It's like, I don't think guys intend for shoulder charges to happen or like try to go in and intentionally shoulder charge or intentionally hit their opponent in the head, but they do. And those warrant red cards. And I think here it's kind of a little bit of a weird situation with, I think in that situation, you can reasonably expect a player to dive on the ball. And at the same time, you can reasonably expect the player to try to kick that ball. And I think it was just bad timing. But because it was bad timing, he ended up kicking a player in the head.
Yeah, discretion probably could have been.
I'm okay with
Polin's behalf
not having extra discipline on top of that. But it's 100% a red card all day. So, but I'm cool with it not being a suspension afterwards, though.
Yeah, I think one of those situations that I like what you kind of mentioned. Is like, I think of Bundiaki's red card against England, where he kind of hit Billy Venipola. Like, it is a red card offense, but I don't think he was maliciously going to try and.
I don't think
Billy Venipola like that hard in that high. It just was just an awkward.
Yeah.
Billy kind of dropped down a little bit, but Bundy didn't react quick enough, and it just ended up like, I think the red card was justified, but I also think it was one of those situations where maybe the red card should have been enough. But
yeah, I just think like sometimes obviously certain red card offenses deserve suspensions after those offenses.
Yeah.
There's certain ones that definitely do. But I'm not. I think there is, like, what I mean. Like, there's that. I guess with this MLR rule change with the 20 minutes. People kind of liken it back to that idea that's been tossed around about having an orange card. And I kind of feel like an orange card is kind of like, you can kind of apply that same idea to like post game discipline too, where it's like, I don't know. I think
further review,
it's like in some situations, maybe getting kicked.
Yeah, it takes a lot of pride to do that, but I think that's the right decision.
Yeah. I'm cool with it. It looks like New England kind of needed them on the weekend. So, I mean, I'm sure
I'll get into that later. And Stu, this is I love that this Stu's been doing a great job writing our scripts the last little bit. And this little bit is for him because he said, Ospreys legend Hanno Dirksen signs for Noel Gold. Now, I feel like the legend term is being used loosely, but Hanno has spent the last decade with the Ospreys. So, Stu, why don't you give everyone a quick rundown of what Dirksen can do for the league, for NOLA, and what should we expect from him? Because I and Derek were both like, I have no idea who this guy is. Neither of us are big Ospreys fans, so give us a lowdown.
Okay, so Hanno Dirksen is a South African-born rugby player. He's most commonly seen on the wing. He has played centre a couple of times, but the wing is his main spot. He's, as you say, he has been with the Ospreys for the past decade. He's played over 154 games for the Ospreys and has scored 40 tries. So that is 200 points in that time. Now, American fans may remember the name from when he was playing for the US, I think it was like under 20 team against Munster. This was back in 2010 because while he was born in South Africa, he then grew up in Nashville, Tennessee, and therefore at the time was eligible to play for the Eagles. And
Talk about like a funny talker, like a South African accent brewed in Nashville. That is just a match that you would never think of.
Yeah. So he was actually approached to be selected for the Eagles for the 2011 Rugby World Cup. And this was, back when he was 19 years old. However, at this time, he'd also signed for the Ospreys, and he knew that if he wanted to continue playing in a professional environment like the Pro 12, now Pro 14, he wouldn't be one of the few players that would be a international signing, because I believe now it's that you can have a maximum of 2 non-European nationals on any team in the Pro 14, which means that if he had decided to play for the US, he would be classified as an international player. Now, from our interview with Jeff Hassler, he was talking about, how he and Tyler Ardron were considered like the internationals for that team at the time. And another part of it is that Dirksen was actually trying to qualify for Wales and the eligibility for what's the one? Residency. So even though he had at this time qualified for the US under residency, and he's still a permanent resident of the US, he was trying to qualify for Wales. And again, it goes back to playing for the Ospreys, because if he was a Welsh national, then he would never have to worry about not being selected again, because he would fall under and be more beneficial to the Ospreys by being a Welsh national. And I do think because of his residency, so he joined the Ospreys in 2010. By 2013, he was classified as like a Welsh player because he was eligible to play for Wales. Unfortunately, to my knowledge, that never came to pass. That's obviously the decision of like Warren Gatland and the coaching staff at the time. But in the other side of that conversation is that then he became one of the most well appreciated and liked players by the Ospreys. And, he has earned that legend status. I mean, you don't just be an average player for 154 caps. You obviously are there and sticking it out for a while. And because of because of COVID in the UK, the Pro 14 season has been reduced. For example, the South African teams didn't take part in this most recent season. They've even finished their season now. It's been reduced that much because they are adding the new South African teams for this Rainbow Cup that's coming up. So this appeared to be like the perfect break in play to allow Hanno to come over to the US and to join the NOLA Gold. And now, as an Ospreys fan, I'm now in a bit of a quandary, because when it'll come to Arrows versus Gold, of course I'll be supporting the Arrows, but my Ospreys cap will be on whenever Hanno gets the ball, and I'd like him to score a try, only for then to be another player has done a forward pass and therefore it doesn't count. So, but
you don't want him to score a try. That's what you're saying.
No,
or scores many tries. But
I want him to score a try. I just don't want it to be his fault for being in the wrong position at the wrong time. Maybe another player was offside or so on and so forth.
It's not a try then. It's not a try then. If it's
a try in the moment, that's what we think. Yeah. But ultimately, he's now 29 years old. He is at the time where he could quite easily have stuck around at the Ospreys for another 4 years or so and won that until retirement. But I'm not entirely sure if he was approached by NOLA or if
NOLA injuries with their backs, especially centers and wings. So
yeah,
makes sense for NOLA.
So yeah. So
I mean, their offense looks okay without him.
Yeah.
Well, ultimately, I think this is a good move both for NOLA by getting this well-respected winger to come in. Obviously the experience of playing in the European leagues is definitely going to be a benefit, and it's good for Hanno as well. Like I said, he's 29. I think the ship has sailed for playing for Wales. But, maybe coming back to the homeland kind of the United States, having permanent residency obviously helps the issue with visas and things along those lines. So yeah, a great opportunity for him. Hopefully he'll be around for a couple of seasons, and yeah, I wish him all the best. Good on him.
Do you have like a favorite Hanno Dirksen memory?
Absolutely. So back in either 2016 or 2017, and the Ospreys were playing in the Challenge Cup, and Dirksen had just come back from a long spell off from injury, and I think it was the Ospreys were playing POW or something like that, and they were just walking all over them. But Dirksen comes off the bench, and there's a tackle had just taken place the other side of the field, and Dirksen is shouting at Dan Bigger to kick it into the try zone. So Dan Bigger gets it, kicks it cross field. Dirksen's there, no one's around him. grabs the ball, goes down, automatic first try, first touch, first try, back from injury. Crowd goes wild for it. I think so. He's a great. Like I keep saying, he's a great player, and it's because I've seen him make great plays. He's very knowledgeable. He has great gamesmanship as well, because he obviously can see where the opposition is, and more importantly, where the opposition isn't, to utilize those tactics. Will he be able to walk into the starting 15? I think that's a bit hard to tell at this moment, but I definitely want to see him.
They had Robbie Coleman, their fly half, and also Carl Meyer, their 15, leave the game with injuries. So those are two big positions that are now left without anybody, and they've already had injury problems. They still have Dominguez, Duplessis, Jojo had a big game too. Tico Savua. So I'm excited to see him. Now I'm even more fired up about it after Stu gave his recap. Love it.
Hopefully Noah starts working on the crossfield kick.
Yeah. Another big signing, signing. I guess there was a year that shortened season difference. Samu Manoa is back to haunt the ribs of MLR players. He is returning to play again with the Seawolves. We were kind of talking about this beforehand, but just to have Samu Manoa even just on your bench for the last 20 minutes of game, and it can go either way. Either you're down a lot and you want someone to go out and hurt some people because you're frustrated and get your team fired up, or you need someone who's going to make some big hits to stop, the ebb and flow of a team who's trying to, score a try when you're up. So interesting signing. He's had a long time off. I mean, the last game he would have played was the 2019 final. And
I mean, he's played 5 less games than everybody else in the past year then.
Also the training part too. But yeah, you're right. It's going to be very interesting.
It's nice. I think it's a good, obviously Seattle off to a very rough start in their championship defense not going so well. But I think at the end of the day, every team needs at least one guy where you just look at the team sheet, and if you're an opposing player, you can just look at the team sheet and go, no. Maybe a couple 4-letter words in that, but I think those are the everybody needs that one guy that you absolutely hate to play against, and Samu Manoa is definitely one of those guys. So maybe brings a little bit of an edge to Seattle that they're kind of missing at this point in time.
Well, guys, very, very cool signings. Let's get right into what happened in week 2.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the Mighty Ducks Disney Plus premiere, right? That's the positive things that happened.
No, we got to rip the Band-Aid off, guys. The Toronto Arrows lost once again, their first back-to-back loss within a season, 39-24 to Utah. The scoreline doesn't really reflect the game. It was a tough game to watch. I mean, for myself, there was a really strong when they scored their 2 tries in 3 minutes. But quick rundown of the game. Started off with kind of a battle of penalty kicks. Utah's Schulte struck 2 penalties before Taylor Adams kind of answered to make it 6-3. With Ferguson coming off the bench, Adams kind of took the kicking duties. And then Utah kind of just took the reins a little bit, going to half, leading 20-3. And then they got right back into it with another try 5 minutes after the second half started, making it 27-3. And, it's funny. After Adams' try, I sent a GIF to the Arrows saying, it's that Avengers GIF of Hawkeye at the point. I think his name was Ronan.
Get Ronan. It right, Dan. Jeez. Get your comic book facts right first before you bring them on my podcast.
Don't give me that hope. And they gosh darn it, they did it. They scored again, and I said, "Oh boy, here we go. Let's go. All right, big comeback." And then Utah scored 2 tries. Both of them kind of soft. Mikey Teo kind of had a easy trance into the try zone, and good for Hurst. Try of the week.
Dude, that was sweet, man.
He played really well. I was kind of shocked to not see him as the 9. I mean, he entered the game pretty early and did pretty well, all things considered.
I mean, when we say we wanted a Canadian to score a try, that's not who we meant.
No.
But
what
a try to score.
Yeah.
Jason Higgins scored a try.
Higgins did score a try. Yeah, Fraser played really well and good for him. Manuel Diana scored a consolation try at the end after a red card. So here's what we're going to do, guys, because I feel like this is a game where we could go on and on and on about some of the negatives. But I'm going to we're going to do something that when I work with my kids, I tell them, before you say something negative, you got to say something positive as well. So that's what we're going to do about the Arrows. We're all going to take turns talking about one thing that we think worked well, what needs improving, who is your player of the match, and who impressed you from the opposite team. And I'm going to give each one of us 5 minutes because I feel like
5 minutes to answer all 4 of those questions.
All 4 of those questions.
No, that's not happening. That's not happening.
We are going to do our best
already.
So I will go first.
That is a fool's errand already.
What worked well? I think Taylor Adams had a much better game. I think he managed things a lot better. In that Atlanta game, he was frantic. He was. It seemed that he was just trying to do a lot by himself, and in this game, he was a lot more controlled, a lot more communication between him and the pack and his backs. I think that was a really, really good chemistry that they were working there. I think him and Higgins played very well together. Another player I thought had a pretty good game. And some of the boots from Adams for position, he had some really strong kicks to get some territory, whether it be from a penalty or just trying to clear space, because there was a lot of time where they were defending in their own 22. So I think Adams had a very strong game. What needs improving? We have touted and applauded Giuseppe Tootala and Ben Lesage's defensive abilities. And it was funny. I actually wanted to do some research, and I wanted to look back at their 3 most recent losses and look at kind of the size of some of the centers that they've been playing against. And unfortunately, as much as we can, pat the back of MLR, a lot of information is still really hard to find unless the teams themselves have done the updates. So I had this big old plan to talk about how the Arrows have had problems with big centers. You think about Robbie Petzer and Renee Ranger in that Glendale game. They had a really tough time defending them. You think about the outlier is Misalau from Rugby ATL last in week 1. He's a little bit shorter. But then Izera and then Robbie Petzer later. And then in this game, Utah had two big centers that really, I think, ran our backs for quite a long time. And I think that if the Arrows are going to succeed, I think Lesage and Dutoit need to play a little bit better. We saw it in the Rugby ATL game. They had fantastic defensive skill in that first game, but in this game, and I think it was more of a problem as a team, but they got really flustered quickly and didn't adapt as well as they have in the past. So that was something that I was not impressed about. I think that's something that needs to be improved. Those two, I think, need to shore up their abilities a little bit more, especially since the team that they're going to be playing against next week in Old Glory. My personal player of the match, I already mentioned him, Taylor Adams. I think had a great game. I think that he's only going to feel more comfortable as this season goes on, and I honestly think that he is the option at 10 for the Arrows. I saw after the first week people already like writing him off on Reddit and some on Twitter, and I think that was wrong, and I think he showed in the Utah game that was wrong. And in terms of who impressed me from the opposition, Samu Malolo, he is just an absolute Tonka truck of a man. like he was just so impressive. He had such an impressive leg drive. Like I would be curious to look back and look at his meters made after a tackle, and he got in a tussle with Levis on the sideline. I'm surprised that the linesman didn't pick it up. He just seemed to be everywhere, all over the pitch until he got taken off. So I'll always give my front row some love. So I am going to go with Samu Malolo.
When he got taken off too, that's the first lineout throw with the reserve hooker in. That was when Wadden stole the lineout, and then Rumball ran it upfield, the offload to Della Vega. Della Vega took it, the little 2-on-1 to Higgins for the first Arrows try. That was the moment that Malolo was taken off. So as soon as he came off, the Arrows put out 2 tries. So it's kind of an interesting way to look at his game and his impact on it in a way.
See, guys, I did that with 40 seconds left. I have utmost confidence in you two. Which one of you guys wants to go first?
You know, this is a podcast, right? Like the whole point.
Derek can go first.
Oh, all right. Just kind of go in big positive, man. The Arrows back row is unreal. Rumball, Della Vega, Diana, they combined in this game for 31 tackles. They missed 1 combined. They're just which is led the game. Obviously, they're just nasty. They have immense work rates. I mean, I think you saw like that try that I just mentioned after Wadden stole the ball. Their ball carrying ability is insane. Their ability to kind of read a play like that, the work rate on defense. You know, it's one of those things where it's like you kind of look at it and it's like, I know they're 0-2, but I feel like these guys are, you know, playing like some of the best back row players in the league right now, despite what the record actually says. And, you know, hopefully it'll just click. Hopefully it'll click. It'll click soon. So that to me is my like glaring positive. I think if you were to go with the 4 best Arrows players in this game, I think you're looking at the back row, and then as Dan said, Taylor Adams. That's how I would rank them anyways. You know, I think in the first half, discipline seemed to be a big issue. There was a lot of penalties, and I think Hagen Schulte, full credit to him, full credit to the Utah Warriors, because they made penalties hurt. That was really what I think ultimately that's what this game was, is that because I was looking at it and I was like, I wanted to come in and be like, my negative thing is going to be discipline, but I'm looking at it and I was like, so the Arrows, I guess, had a lack of discipline in the context of this game. But in a league on the weekend where referees were handing out yellow cards like candy on Halloween, it really isn't that bad. Right. So the Arrows got twice as many penalties as Utah, which is bad. That includes Utah just being dumb in the last 10 minutes of the game where they forgot how to hit properly, and ended up with a red card and a yellow card for those efforts. But beyond that, the average amount of penalties for all teams across the league this week was 13.5. So I'll round that up to 14 because you can't have half a penalty. So like they were below average as far as discipline. The thing with this though is if you look at all the scoring plays that Utah had, right? Schulte, penalty, 6-0, right? As you said, they kind of answer it. Arrows offside. That's Maholo's first try. Detroit not rolling away, ensuing lineout. Shepard plays the man in the air. That's Williams' try on the next lineout. Halftime, you kind of have Maholo kind of has the Fortunen actually creates a turnover on Montero, runs it back up the field. Nice transition work. That's not a penalty. That was a turnover counterattack. But then beyond that, Rumball off his feet. That's Teo's lineout. Adams offside on the Tootala grubber when he was ahead of the ball. Fraser Hurst, the back of the lineout mall, that unreal 65-yard run. The reason that lineout was happening was because Adams was offside. Right. So that was a big swing of that could have been an Arrows try. That could have brought them within that would have made it 34-24. But Adams mistimed his run. And then it's 39-17 all of a sudden. And I think you kind of look at that and it was ultimately 32 of Utah's 39 points came directly off of a penalty, like the literal next phase or two off of a penalty. And I think you kind of look at the Shepard one on the Williams try where it was Detroit already gave up a penalty. And then the Arrows actually stopped Utah on that one, but you gave them a second shot at it. And I think like Schulte at the start, he set the tone with that 55-meter penalty, right? Being like, yeah, this is my range, guys.
I forgot about all of the other. I forgot about that because of all the other things that happened in that game. That was insane.
Yeah, so he just sets up and does it. Adams tried his own, missed. He tried one from 50. Schulte at one point with advantage tries a 50-meter drop goal too. Which I mean, if you need a signal for a guy that thinks he's playing well, it is I'm trying a 50-meter drop goal. You know you're feeling your game at that point. But yeah, I think it was just like, and I know, like I just feel like, man, it's like if you can just like, it was like I just look at this game and I'm like, that's a lot. That's too many penalties, but it's like in the grand scheme of thing, it's not really that much penalties if you look across MLR, but it was a lot more than what Utah took. And then Utah, full credit to them, especially Schulte, because man, like some of those kicks that he had, like even like Dan, like I know like you were mentioning like Adams did well with some kicks, but I mean he lost that battle to Schulte. Like as far as like the kicking, for sure, he lost that battle to Schulte.
Yeah. That
one where Schulte tries a clearance kick and it goes from like 10 meters inside his own 22 to inside the arrows 22. It's like, you know, you flip the pitch like that. So I mean, as far as I'm getting kind of in. That's the guy that impressed me from the opposition. Same with Fortune. Fortune was a menace at the line out. Like absolute madman at the line out. He had a couple steals. The ones that he didn't steal, he made sure they were messy for the arrows too. And then I just think like in general, like to me, this game kind of came down to like Utah was just like, if you're going to take a penalty, we're going to kill you for it. And that's what they did. And I mean, full credit to Utah for being able to do that. Right. Like if you're going to get an opportunity to do it, you know, take advantage of it. Cause it's like, you kind of look at like the rest of the stats from this game. And I don't think it's like, I mean, the score, like you kind of said, Dan, like the scoreboard doesn't necessarily indicate it. Like, I mean, Utah had the edge in the set piece, both in the scrum and the line out. Like ruck speed and everything is pretty similar. Like tackles made, the defensive statistics, it's all like relatively like Toronto had 100 tackles, Utah had 80. But like Toronto had a higher tackle made percentage, right? Utah was still missing tackles and stuff, right? And it's like the stats in the game don't necessarily reflect, I feel like, the overall score, other than Utah had 6 penalties, Toronto had 12, and on those 12, Utah made them pay for every single one of them. So you got to clean that up. But at the same time, you have to clean that up. But at the same time, looking at the rest of the league, really not that bad, but it was just in the context of this game, it seemed like a lot. So that's kind of how I look at it there. And yeah, I feel like I missed a question.
No, who was your man of the match? But you kind of mentioned the back row was.
Yeah, man. Yeah, exactly. From the Arrows man of the match, yeah, for sure. I would say from the Arrows man of the match would definitely. I'm gonna just collectively give it to the back row.
That's fair. I'll give it to you.
Yeah, and then I mean Utah too. Schulte, Fortunen, those guys were outstanding, and you got to give the shout out to Fraser Hurst too. As you said, I mean, in all reality, that was the one moment of this game, because this game, as Dan said, was kind of frustrating to watch. When Hurst kind of busted out that run, and it was him versus like Tootala and Levis, which, by the way, like Tootala was the defender on this try. Like, let that one sink in for your first pro try. For your first pro try, you got to blow by Joaquin Tootala, man. That's pretty good. But I was like, that was the one moment in the game where it's like, I love the Arrows, but I also love Canadian rugby, and that made me smile. Like, just seeing a young like UBC grad.
Yeah, uncapped,
absolutely uncapped, scorch a team for a 65-meter try, solo effort in your first career MLR game. That's honestly, it's just cool. And I mean, like, it went against my team. It went against my team in the Toronto Arrows, but you know what? I like. Unlike Stu, you know what? Stu kind of went with I want the try taken back. There's no way I want that try taken back. It's the try of the week. I saw World Rugby posted it on their Instagram page. Like, yeah, like welcome to the show, Fraser. This is that was cool. And I mean, ultimately he played pretty well too throughout the whole game. especially for coming in from Bascus, because he didn't play at all last week. And Utah kind of has that weird roster thing where they only have 2 scrum halves. So that'll be interesting to see if Bascus out long term, or if he's just out short term, maybe out for like a week. But it's like if Bascus out, like Fraser looks like he's the guy there now. So depends on how long Bascus out for, I guess. But good for him. That was way more than 5 minutes, but you didn't stop me, did you?
No, you're actually not too bad. Like you're 3 minutes over. That's fine.
Oh, see, I told you it wasn't gonna happen.
But,
you didn't stop me though. Your job is to stop me. Why didn't you stop me?
No, you need to make. Yeah, whatever. All right, Stu. I want to hear how you felt. What do you think?
Stu, also, you only have 2 minutes because you have to make up for the 3 minutes that I went over.
No, I'm not an absolute tyrant. I'm only kind of a tyrant. Your time starts now, Stu.
Okay, so what worked well, I think, for not just for this game, but for like the longevity of this season, it goes back to the team signing these 2 big names that played their first MLR games, and that's, as we mentioned, the aforementioned Joaquin Tootala and Manuel Montero. Tootala playing the entire 80 at fullback, and then Montero made a big impact as soon as he came onto the field as well. But for both these players, these are both Pumas. They're both capped internationally. And even when, the pressure was on, the points were accumulating for Utah, at no point when these players had the ball did I ever get the indication that they were making like a panicked move or looking to get things moving. They were both in complete control of what they were doing, their surroundings as well. Now, could have other players been closer to them to assist them? Absolutely, but you can only control yourself. Tootala, especially in the first half, breaking through tackles was fantastic to see. Montero definitely helping in the attack as well. And, I think we've been saying that these are big signings for the Arrows, but, you always wonder, like, once they're on the field, have we just hyped ourselves up? And now we're expecting like a negative. Fortunately, that wasn't the case. These guys were fantastic. Hopefully they'll get more game time. Hopefully Montero can start in one of the next few fixtures as well. And we can, hopefully see how the team progresses with these 2 icons from Argentina in the side. What needs improving? This comes back to the same thing of having a fractured preseason. And, I was even reminded that the traditional Arrows versus Rooney preseason scrimmage didn't happen for obvious reasons. But even something that isn't classified as a match, that's a good example of seeing like, okay, what works, what doesn't, what can we improve on? And it just seems to be that because of that lack of preparation, things are just taking longer to gel together. I would even possibly would have included the relocation to Atlanta, which obviously as a cost-saving measure did seem to be a very last-minute kind of thing, only flying out a few days before their first game. However, at the same time...
They left last minute or like it was planned last minute? Definitely
they left last minute.
Okay.
But that was intentional because they have said they planned on spending the first 3 weeks in a hotel and then deciding where you're going from. But anyone who's ever paid for a hotel knows that how expensive they can be. So you obviously don't want to be spending too much. And that's the thing, is that I can notice certain things, and especially the instance where the Arrows scored 2 tries in 3 minutes. That was when things were starting to gel together. But at the same time, like the defensive efforts weren't, and that's how Utah was able to undo the damage of conceding 2 tries so quickly. My personal player of the match, I think you've already touched on, it's Taylor Adams. Great mindset, great outlook of the game. Maybe all the penalties that he wanted to kick didn't go over the bar as intended. But he was controlling the game. Again, being offside as well wasn't helpful. But
I like that play though.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. That's the, if he had been onside, that would have been an amazing try. But unfortunately, it was called by the touch judge as well as the referee, so didn't happen. However, I'm now also starting to see the Rob Howley attack plan from having watched too many Welsh games and noticing that when deep Adams is kicking onto the field, he's not kicking into touch, and then the idea of that is then that Utah would then kick out, and then it would be a net advantage for the Arrows. As we can see, that didn't really come to pass. But, he was definitely an improvement over last week's game. And by that logic, he should be getting multiple drop goals against DC. That's just how it works. And who impressed me from the opposition? I think, we have to admit, Fraser Hurst had a fantastic game. He came on in the 21st minute as number 21. Coincidence? Absolutely. But
Basket news. Okay, this is where I'm gonna tweak my shoulder.
Yeah. But obviously that probably wasn't the plan from the coaching staff, and to have Hurst then come on and then score that wonderful try was fantastic. I'm also impressed by Mikey Teo, because it was only a few days before the season started that he had been announced as one of the, I don't know if he's vice captain or co-captain. That's a whole thing. But
Bailey Wilson, I think, is the captain.
Yeah. Okay. So Teo's the vice captain, but he's obviously a well-respected.
Bailey Wilson's the youngest captain in MLR history.
Oh,
that's
good for him.
It's his claim to fame there.
But Mikey Teo obviously doing the business, obviously scoring a try himself, but he had good communication with the referee as well, and and I know there's especially when a player on your team gets carded, there's the obvious, you want to defend your teammate approach and say oh, hang on, how come about this and that, but Teo took it really well, as well did both the players that got carded. And you want that in the captain. You want a captain that's not only there for your team and can do the job, but is also respectful for the game himself. So that's my breakdown of the Arrows match. Adams for the Arrows and Teo for Utah.
It's funny. I think we just talked about players and new teams, and I just kind of dawned on me halfway through this. Mika Cruze being traded to Utah. Yeah. I mean, good for the Arrows for not having to play him with Utah. That is a big signing for them. Mika Cruze, one of the most talented young Americans in MLR, is now bypassing his time in LA and joining Utah. There have been rumors about LA's issues with money and foreign players and stuff like that. So obviously this is, you don't want to see a talent like this go, but if the money's not there, then Utah will gladly take Mika Cruze off their hands. So good for Mika for finding a home that if they could be
a fun back three too with Teo.
Oh yeah,
because Laubser, the Namibian international, he looked pretty good in his MLR debut too.
Yeah,
he had that after that Fortunen turnover, he had that the really I think Schulte offloaded to him. And he kind of had a couple side steps on some guys and busted a pretty big gain for to set up what then Malolo kind of did his line break down to the try line, which was another great tackle by Taylor Adams to go one-on-one with the hooker and
a giant.
Yeah,
what did I say? Tonka truck,
man. It was a great tackle, and much like Ben Lesage's great tackle
against
Connor Cook last week. It was a great tackle. It's just a shame that they scored 30 seconds later anyways. But I think the other interesting thing that I don't think we really touched on is how weird is it watching the Arrows kind of come up on the wrong side of the scrum for once? That was kind of odd.
Yeah, it's funny because I thought Pat Lynott had a good game.
I thought Keith had a really good game too.
I think Keith looked a lot more comfortable.
Yeah, but even Keith hit a lot of rucks and stuff. He had a good work rate too. But I think at the end, which was kind of interesting because they subbed Roland on for Lynott,
And
and
then
Keith went back to the loose
across.
head, and the scrum looked a lot better with that. So it's like I kind of wonder if that's something they look at going into next week's game against Old Glory. Start with that, and then maybe bring Lynott on later. Atkinson was the only player in the game to not play too. So, I mean, you probably want to keep Keith on, and then get Cortez.
It's just how many games is he going to have to play 80 minutes, right? Like we don't want him to burn out too. So their hands are going to have to be played at some point.
No, of course and stuff, but yeah, exactly. So it's like Atkinson will probably get his first game at some point, I would imagine. But even that though, maybe you mix that around, maybe like Ouellette or whatever off the bench too. Like maybe you got options, I think, with like the bench and stuff. But I wonder if like how the scrum seemed to improve a little bit with Roland at tight head. And granted, I think at this point in the game, like Utah had their reserve guys on too. So maybe that's a bit of a factor. But so I mean, like you can kind of hem and haw with that. But I wonder if if anybody thinks about a little bit of a shakeup. But
well, I mean, they're playing a team that historically doesn't have the best scrum machine, in the league with Old Glory's time in MLR.
But I think Old Glory has proven that they don't need that.
No, they don't. And
they've looked a lot better, man. They had two front row players in the team of the week this week.
No, I know. But if history repeats
different
itself,
than 2020 Old Glory now.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see if the Arrows, even with these new rules, can use it as a weapon. I mean, next week's going to be a hard game no matter what. They've got a tough schedule in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think
so.
Like I said, like I'm not ready to hit that panic button yet. I'm still wearing Arrows gear, unlike you guys. So I'm not ready to hit that panic button yet. But I think next week against Old Glory, I think like this has to be like the message sending game in a way, like as far as like to the rest of the league, because like one, you can't go to 0-3, but if you look at the rest of the East, like everyone is 1-1, or Old Glory and NOLA are 1 in the draw. But like the most wins anybody has in the East is 1. So it's like you're not like too far behind really. But I think like, if you can kind of knock Old Glory down to like 1-1, bring yourself up to 1-2, send the message to the rest of the league that you can, hey, we're still the Toronto Arrows, we're still the team to beat in the Eastern Conference. And kind of do that by knocking off one of the teams that is playing quite well, despite also not having a very fractured and weird preseason themselves. And then the week after, though, you get the LA Giltinis in their first road game too. So but like that's the thing though, and it's like we'll talk about this later when we actually talk about LA. Is it's like I guess maybe we can transition to it a little bit, but like at what point do you start thinking like if LA's for real, like, and if they have to like kind of prove themselves, right? Because
I covered them last week. And I said if injuries start popping up, DTH didn't play this week. I know that his family is arriving or just arrived in the last couple of days, so I don't know if it was maybe health and also kind of getting things ready for his family. But if Ashley Cooper and
but what if
Gittow, but like even that, like they still have Cardi, they still have they still have so many pieces that they could just pop in there and
see what you're saying, but it was like I think more or less what I was getting at though was like, I mean, they beat New England, who was last in the East last year, 5 games, not the greatest sample size. Seattle kind of looks like a shell of their former selves at this point. I just mean like, who do they have to beat before we're like, okay, LA might be for real here as like a shield contender? Like, because under normal circumstances, I feel like we would be circling the game against Toronto as that game because it'd be like their first, which would be their third game, but the Arrows right now are 0-2. And I still think like there's no way, like the Arrows are not going to finish the season and last, but like
unless they do.
But they're not going to. What a wacky start to the season, eh?
Yeah. I mean, so
What
they
an
both have
absolute
bye
start
weeks.
to this.
Both Seattle and LA. So LA, we don't know. Their next game is against Toronto.
Yeah, their next game's against Toronto after a bye week. But it's
If
also
they can beat the Arrows, and if they can beat the Arrows, then we might say that they're the real thing.
I think too, though. Hold on, let me pull up LA's schedule too. This is because I think too, like the LA's schedule for the next couple games is kind of interesting.
So it's the Arrows, then it's Houston, then it's the Legion, then it's DC.
See, I kind of want to see what LA is going to look like after that game in New York.
Wherever that may be.
Yeah. But it's like the road game against New, like, because you could go Toronto, Houston, San Diego, Old Glory, New York as your next 5 games. We'll see. I don't know. Maybe we'll see where they're at that point, I guess. But maybe after seeing them play San Diego, I don't know. I do not know. This is a bit of a tangent, but like I think the point though is it's like I think the Arrows are going to be fine in the grand scheme of this season. I still think they'll make the playoffs. It's a weird start to the year.
They definitely look like a team that are rusty.
Yeah.
You know, the first game, their offense really didn't click. The second game, it was the defense. Like, if we can put the defense of the first game and the offense of the second game together, they're a complete team.
Defense wasn't too bad. At least it wasn't far off from like what you kind of defense Utah put out. It was the penalties that Utah just burned them on. And I mean,
let's not repeat ourselves because we've got into that. Let's move on because we still have a lot of stuff that we have a lot of games that we want to talk about. Some MLR was other than the Arrows was played. And Derek, you're actually top of the docket. You are telling us a little bit about what happened between Nola and Rooney.
Nola. This is one of the aforementioned games where referees were handing out cards like candy. And Canadian ref in this one, Mo Chandri. So shout out to the Canadian ref. He was quite busy in this game. As far as the actual rugby that was being played, this is really the Jojo Tukovosau show. He started the game with a monster intercept try, ran it all the way back on Nate Brakely. He had another intercept try. Sadly, that one was on Quinn Nawadi. That one, as I think, that one became like the flame and the fire gif or whatever that the Rugby Network put out. So that was pretty funny. But so like the 2 intercept tries, and then he also added just a try like in normal phase of attack play. He finished off a nice play from Nola down the wing. And just because a hat trick isn't enough, he also had 15 tackles. He's a winger. He had 15 tackles. He was second on his team in tackles behind the flanker, Guerrera. But it was like, wingers shouldn't have 15 tackles in a game. Like, I don't know how he got 15 tackles in a game. But that's just an absolute monster performance from him. The other tries in this game, Nola got a penalty try. Again, unfortunately, that was Quinn Nawadi's doing on that penalty try where he had Dominguez. He was trying to chase him down from behind and kind of did like, I guess in football, it would kind of be like a horse collar tackle or maybe like a seatbelt tackle kind of thing. And fully deserved the yellow card for it. And it was definitely a penalty try because if Nawadi doesn't tackle him, he's walking in. And then you also had Cam Dolan and Damian Stevens picked up his first try in Major League Rugby. Dolan's try looked like every other Cam Dolan try, just a 5-meter scrum, 8-man pick runs it out. Rooney got their tries from Foden, Fuatai and Tawaki and Bonazzo all picked up their first MLR tries. And, Hollandset had some conversions. This is kind of one of those games that is kind of interesting because, like, if you kind of look at the stats on it, like, it doesn't necessarily look like Nola would beat them like this badly, but like the Jojo intercept tries definitely hurt. Like I said, like Nola, this game kind of reminded me of like the 2019 Nola. like the version of NOLA that's like, I don't care how many tries that you score, we will guarantee that we're going to score at least one more. And like New York had a little bit more possession, a little bit more territory, but NOLA made their opportunities count when they mattered the most. And like their own ruck, they did a great job though with some quick ball. So did New York. New York was very quick in the ruck speed and stuff. It was just, NOLA's defense kind of held up. NOLA had 19 penalties in this game though, which I mean, I'm sure is something that they're definitely not going to want to keep up. It's, it'd be interesting, like 19 penalties, playing 30 minutes a man down. Carl Mayer was hurt and there was nobody left to kind of cover for him. So they realistically played 38 minutes of this game down a man and won 51-28. So I mean, I'm not sure, like, I mean, they won, but I'm not sure how much you want to play like that over the course of the whole season. As far as the Canadians go, Bailey and Howard were solid, but relatively quiet throughout the match. Nawadi, two, I guess, glaring errors, the yellow card and the intercept try that JoJo picked off. But beyond that, he seems like he's adapting pretty well to playing on the wing. Like good positionally, kind of making tackles where he can, looking for work when he sees those opportunities as well. And so I mean, I like kind of seeing that transition stuff. Rooney too, though, like Rooney still crushing the line out mauls and stuff. So like that's going to be tough for any team to kind of stop. And I mean, over the course of the league too, it's like it looks like the line out maul is going to be the way to go to score most of the points this year. And Rooney's one of the best teams at that. So we'll see if they can kind of keep that going forward. Kind of a weird game. Rooney got the bonus point though. I feel like Nola's going to give up a lot of bonus points, but hey, if you score 50 a game, it's not that big of a deal, right?
There you go.
Also, is it sad? Like, I know we're about to run through all the games. Is it sad that JoJo has like picks off 2 intercept tries and he probably doesn't even have the coolest hat trick this weekend?
No.
No, it's not sad, Stu?
No.
All right. I'll tell you about the coolest hat trick later because I also have that game.
All right, Stu, you are up next, my friend, and you are talking to us about the battle of the expansion teams from last year, Old Glory versus Rugby ATL. Give us a lowdown on what happened in Virginia.
Well, so DC versus ATL. So this was their final game of 2020. And the score in that game was DC 31, Atlanta 29. And there's ATL started with the lead, and it was Old Glory in the end that was able to overcome that deficit and take the win at the end. It started off with like the first 20 minutes, no score, even defense, even attack. And then it was finally going for the posts for the penalties. So that was started off by ATL. Robbie Petts scored 2. Danny Tootala starting at 10 instead of his usual scrum half position of 9. But playing like a scrum half throughout the game. I could see how much of a nuisance he was to Rugby ATL throughout that match. Then it was Rowan Garrows who scored the first try of the match and went over, and ATL then built up a 10-point lead going into the half. But I think one of the main changes that happened was that DC subbed off their scrum half for Mike DeBollis, who is normally a fly half. So now you have a fly half who has the number of a scrum half and a scrum half that has the number of a fly half. So they just swap positions and then get more suited to what they are. And going back to Danny Tootala, he was able to help in the build up to a couple of tries, as well as getting over for a try himself. As the game came on and continued, as we mentioned, there were cards being handed out all over this weekend, and Rugby ATL got theirs first, and then DC, not wanting to be left out, decided they wanted a card as well. So for 2 minutes, both teams were down to 14 men. And in the end, it all came down to the final try, which was Tavita Nagali for DC and Mark O'Keefe for ATL. These were tries that took place over 2 minutes. So it was end-to-end stuff. So it was great watching at Segra Field. Also, a bit of an aside, Segra Field looked amazing. It was, all pristine. You didn't have all those other lines on the pitch to confuse you. So I think that was a great improvement as well. But yeah, this was obviously a very close match, and ATL were at the death very close to scoring another try. And I was thinking, how weird would it be if DC opened their season with back-to-back tries, back-to-back ties even. Yeah, drawn games, 4 points, that's it. But in the end, they were able to hold out and then kick it into touch. And, I'm sure they're pleased to have a win. ATL obviously didn't walk away empty-handed by losing by 7 or fewer. They get the losing bonus point. So now let me talk about, I've already mentioned my standout player. It was Danny Tootala. They announced today the MLR 15 for round 2. And because he was the fly half, when he's normally a scrum half, I can understand why he wasn't in that MLR 15, but I think it's criminal that he's not in it. So I was like, I'm okay with it, but I'm not okay with it. You get what I mean?
Yeah, I got you.
Is Danny Tootala, like, he's like the early, like, if you were to do betting odds on MVP right now, it's him, right? Like, he's the favorite for sure, right?
For the East, I'd say, definitely.
And for the whole league, I meant the whole league MVP. Who over the first 2 weeks has been better than Danny Tootala?
I feel like you're cutting into my 5 minutes at this rate, mate. Come on.
Be a conversation.
Yeah, well, I gave you your 5 minutes. You give me my 5 minutes, and then we'll have this healthy conversation afterwards. All right? Okay. I haven't even gotten to the Canadians yet. I thought you'd be willing to hear those. So for DC, we have 2 Canadians. There was Doug Fraser back again at center. He was improved. I thought he did great against Nola, but he was like improving again. I think there was an opportunity for him to score a try if an offload had been given to him, and unfortunately that never came to happen. Also, recent guest of the show, Luke Campbell, came off for the bench at the 63rd minute, and he added to the scrum as well, definitely. ATL, of course, Captain Canuck, Matt Heaton, leading for the full 80. Connor Keys, a bit of the been to the naughty step because he was the ATL player that received the yellow card. So, obviously not what you want to happen. You don't want to be letting your team down by being on the naughty step for 10 minutes. But, solid performances from all those guys. So, Derek, what was it you want to have a conversation about?
Well, you said Danny Tootala. You said Danny Tootala would be the MVP for the East right now. So I'm questioning, because my question I was trying to ask was about the league MVP and those odds. I feel like it's Tootala, but now I'm curious who you think in the West would be better than Tootala to make you say he'd be the MVP of the East right now.
Well, I think at the moment, and I think it is because of the opposition they faced, it's definitely one of the guys from LA could definitely be in the conversation for MVP for the West.
Well, Ashley Cooper's also been playing well.
Names. Dan's trying to say names. Your mic is really low for some reason right now, Dan.
Adam and Ashley Cooper's been playing really well in his 2 games. Matt Giteau also has played really well in his 2 games. Hasn't played as much. He came off in 47th minute for with Luke Hardy coming on. So I agree. I agree with Derek. I'm full-heartedly agree with him. I think he's the MVP of the league so far. I mean, again,
I'm just saying, if you were to do betting odds, right now, if you were to make a bet, but in 16 more weeks, who are we going to say the league MVP is? If you were to rank guys with odds, is Tootala the favorite? That's all I'm asking.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you.
I can agree with that. I'm just saying, for the sake of having a conversation, we are only 2 weeks into the tournament, so we could say, oh, he's the MVP for the East, and I would say Matt Gissau is probably MVP for the West. Although I would also say, after scoring a try, it's my man Ryan James who's definitely the MVP for the West.
We gotta we gotta find out a way to get you a Ryan James jersey.
Yeah, you can send me a signed one. That's fine.
Dude, let's make it happen, man. Somebody from LA that listens to this podcast, get Stu a Ryan James jersey for.
Yeah. I know DTH is taking time off. If he could have a chat with
exactly. We have those LA
have a chat with Adam Gilchrist, see what he can sort out.
All right. Well,
but also like I don't know. I guess they need to combine. Like, do we have to get the Gill squads to combine their resources and actually get the last name put on the back?
Oh, actually, you mean have the nameplates from the Gill Groanies.
Yeah. Which, by the way, small aside, they looked really good this week. Like I watched the game and I don't think I saw a single guy's nameplate fall off.
Yeah, because that happened in the first week.
Yeah, it happened in the first week again. But this week, I don't think I saw a nameplate fall off. So if the nameplates aren't going to fall off, I love the last names on the back of the jersey.
I think my issue for it, just quickly, is that it doesn't match the numbering on the back. Like if it was just white letters,
it's the Philadelphia Flyer name bar.
Yeah, but we're not in Philadelphia. That's the thing.
I'm not saying they stole it from that, but that's how the Flyers do it on their orange too. Is they have the white and it's the orange outlines of the name.
Anyone that's
I wonder if they just
Texas Longhorns fan, let us know if Texas does that as well.
I wonder.
Anyway,
Texas Longhorn thing.
Yeah. Anyway, I think we should move on to the next match.
I am up. So I am covering the Sabercats versus the Free Jacks, which, starting my timer now, it's a really you look at the scoreline but it was a really interesting game. The Sabercats had 60% of the possession, had 900 meters carried, compared to the Free Jacks 474. The Free Jacks were kicking a heck of a lot more, over 500 meters kicked to the 200 that the Sabercats did. The Sabercats had more line breaks, less penalties conceded, had to make less tackles, and had 65% of the territory. So how did they get shut out? And it really comes down to their inefficiency to take advantage when they were up with the yellow cards that the Free Jacks were given out. This was another game where a lot of cards were given out. Harrison Boyle was sent to the sin bin for a dangerous tackle, and 2 minutes later,
this game was the most cards given out.
Yeah. Josh Larson, captain Canadian, was also given a card. So they were down to 13 men, and they came close, but no cigar. And it was insane. They had all this time in their end, and nothing happened. And the first score didn't come until the second half, and it was the Free Jacks that took advantage of it. My boy Dougie Fife had 2 tries in the game, and it just came that New England's counterattack was able to just take advantage of opportunities where Houston just kind of looked frustrated after that period where those yellow cards ended. It just seemed to be they were super down on themselves. They were making mistakes, and it just wasn't a game for them. It must have been really frustrating for Houston fans to watch after they had such a successful first game against the Seawolves. You saw a lot of really strong play from players that Diki Lani and Freire, the Argentinian fullback, and it just really wasn't there. In terms of the Canadians, Robbie Povey came on in the 68th minute to cover Zach Godfrey on the wing. He was there. He was a body on the field. Didn't really get a whole lot of action. Didn't really do a whole lot.
Yeah, it's tough to look good when you lose 32-0.
Yeah. Again, Josh Larson had his yellow card for not rolling away, but I think that he also just had his simple, hard working lock game, and someone's got to give him like a Tim Hortons gift card to give to all the refs, because my God, he spends a lot of time talking to those guys. And if the Free Jacks are going to continue to play like this, he needs to get, used to talking to refs because it was bad. So good for him for really sticking it out. My players that I was impressed with, I kind of mentioned him. Dougie Fife had a strong game at fullback. Really fun to watch him play. They have the Free Jacks have a Johnson and then they have a Johnston. Johnston scored a try this week and had a good game. Johnson had a try last week off that impressive line-out play. So, we talk about teams that have strong back rows. The Free Jacks back row came to play. For the Sabercats, again, when you're shut out at home, not a lot of guys impress. But Jinho Mun, they're 9. They're New Zealand, South Korean scrum half. I've been really impressed with it the last couple of games. You really see his 7 style sometimes when he kind of takes it in himself. So a tough game for Houston, but it seemed to be one of those games where they just didn't really have the things going for them. Sam Windsor also had a tough game with kicking, and it was a windy, humid game. For the Free Jacks, good for you for having such a strong defensive game. Shore up those penalties that you're giving away. I mean, they had 3 yellow cards in the game. Like, clean that up. And if you continue to play as defensively strong and have guys like Fife and Waka making big plays, you should be fine. Okay, well, next on the docket, Stu, you are covering the Austin versus San Diego game. Tell us about what happened in that game.
So I was watching this game and I had the LA Seattle game in like the mini screen in the corner because of this game started first, and it was a far closer affair.
I love that picture on the Rugby Network.
And yeah, the picture-in-picture thing is great, especially because so many games are appearing to be played at the same time. So you don't have to choose now. You can just get both.
That is my favorite part about the whole website.
Anyway, back to the Austin Legion game. This was a very tight game, and the Legion, started off and they look strong. Obviously, they have the history from 2020, and wanted to make right after the week 1. But they made a few errors, as it turned out. So instead of going for the posts during like the first 20 minutes, they instead went to the corner, and that turned out it didn't work. I know we've been saying that the line out has been one of the surefire ways to get a try in MLR this season, but it didn't pay off. Austin turned the ball over, cleared the lines, and not long after, it was Mac Mason for the Gilgronis that slotted the first kick. And interestingly enough, that was the only score for the entire first half. I mean, the Legion again looked to be going for a try. So Cameron Clark broke the line, and Save Totovosal looked to have crossed, but it was the issue of the last pass just went a few millimeters forward. So back for the scrum that way. Speaking of the scrum, this is where the new laws have had a real negative effect on the teams, because Austin were completely dominant at like the 5-meter scrum in front of the post, but they would win the penalty, but then they can't have another scrum, even though it would have been the opportunity for them to then, have another scrum and then maybe have won a penalty try. But because of this law change, we can't have that. We have to go for a kick or tap and go. And because of that, I think that was a move that was been removed from Austin's arsenal. And as such, the half finished 3-0 to Austin. And then at the start of the second half, or to be more honest, 15 minutes into the second half, it was Jamie McIntosh who went over to make it. It was 11-0 because of the misconversion. And it was only then that we had the first Canadian involvement, this time for San Diego. with Travis Larson going over for his try. And then what turned the entire game on its head was a miscalculation in the Austin lineout, which overthrown, picked up by San Diego all the way to the other side of the field, taken down. And then it was finally Carlo Dirksen who went over for the 7-point try. And then, just to add to the drama, because this was only a 3-point game at the time, Travis Larson then got a yellow card. So 3 minutes before the end, man advantage. We're thinking that maybe Austin will be able to get it. Unfortunately, they just fell short. There seems to be a pattern that's emerging for Austin, doing well and then only for right at the death to be missing out on what should have been a surefire victory. Anyway, on to the star players. As I said, Carlo Dirksen at scrum half was doing the magic, absolutely, and obviously getting the try as well helped that. I also would just like to mention quickly that Bryce Campbell was injured during the game, nasty collision. Again, this is one of these accidental knocks, no one to blame. And he was stretchered off. He was, however, moving his hands, so indicating that he was at least conscious. He has now gone on Twitter to thank everyone for his support. He said he's feeling better, and that it looked a lot worse than it actually was in the end. Nothing else has come forward, but I'm sure because of the contact to the head, he'll be going through the concussion protocols. And I obviously can't say if he'll be playing this coming weekend, but glad that he's on the mend at least, and that's a positive to take away from anything like this. So let's talk about Canadians for Austin. There's Mo Abdelmonem again. He also felt like he was just inches away from adding another try to his Austin record, and unfortunately that never came to pass. Cole Davis on the wing as well. I think he had a great performance as well, but ultimately, didn't get the victory he wanted. And San Diego, it was the golden man and then the golden card man, Travis Larson again, and it's these things, it's teams losing their discipline in the final 10 minutes. And, fortunately for Travis, it didn't lose his team the game, but, against different teams going down to 14 with only a few minutes remaining, you don't want to be that guy, do you? But yeah, very intense game, very challenging for both Austin and San Diego. One for the purists, I'd say, just because it's not a high score, but definitely a great game to watch.
My one question about that game, though, should Travis Larson's penalty have been a penalty try? Because it's a professional foul. It's pulling down a maul, rolling towards the try line. Should that have been a penalty try? And was kind of hard done by there. That's, I think, the big question about that game.
Well, ultimately, it's down to the referee's decision on the day. I mean, this is
everything
the issue.
Down to the referee's decision.
Yeah, but
I'm asking if that decision should have been a penalty try.
Well, I'm gonna have to agree with the ref because I'm not a ref, and that guy is, and he was obviously there and had the best view of it. I'm gonna say it's not a penalty try. Maybe it was just too far from the line to be a penalty try. There was too much to give in for interference or what could have prevented a penalty try. So I'm saying no, it's not a penalty try.
I wish I had as much faith Stu had in refs. God bless
I'm just trying to be the least controversial person on the podcast.
Yeah, the Giuseppe Dutoit on the wing.
Wow, and Ryan James for MVP. Oh no,
yeah, that's pretty fire. I know what you got.
Did Ryan James score a try this weekend?
Yeah, Derek, finish us off. Tell us about how Ryan James did.
Yeah. Stu's favorite player, Ryan James, did have a try. Nice offload from Adam Ashley Cooper as well. I think, this is one of those games. It's a quite fascinating game, really. I think, Seattle looked really good in warmups. And then their downfall was that LA arrived to the stadium safely and walked on the pitch. Things seem to go poorly for Seattle after LA actually showed up, which they arrived on time, so it didn't take much. Yeah, 3 tries opening 12 minutes and just banging them off, really. Like Abel, White, Goddard got on the board early. Goddard ended up with a hat trick in this one too. His final try was just the scrum on LA, which some people I guess have questioned. And weirdly, like if you look at the scrum stats on this, Seattle did technically have the better scrum over the course of the game, although it didn't look like it on that play where they just kind of marched over the line there. Adam Ashley Cooper, Stu's favorite player, Ryan James, Cottrell also had 2 tries himself. Man, like Goddard did a great job of facilitating a lot of quick ball for LA, and I feel like that's the way that they want to play. They want the ball like in the back's hands. They want the ball quickly, and when the offense, I mean, like Giddow is obviously world class at like facilitating like where the ball should go. And LA's kind of taking full advantage of that. Meeks had another big game, a lot of big runs. James Stu, I'll give it to you. James looked really good. He had a number of big carries on the day. Obviously, scored the try too. I think like the interesting thing kind of happened with with about 27 minutes left to play. James Malcolm comes on for Seattle, and this dude better start next week because I don't know how you don't start him after this. And if you're looking for a replacement for Stefan Kotze, scoring a hat trick in your first 9 minutes of MLR play is a good way to solidify that spot. So that is, at least I believe, I know Stu, I know you were involved in some discussions about this on Twitter earlier today, but the fastest hat trick in MLR history. I saw like the fastest hat trick in World Cup history was Corbus Reinark against Canada last World Cup. So yay. But
No, I'm sad.
yeah,
How quick
Thanks,
was that?
Derek.
yeah, now you're sad thinking about that. But Malcolm did it in like half the time. So there was a lot. So like all 3 of those tries too, rolling maul, line out maul. Like it'd be interesting. I think over the course of the year, it's going to be interesting to see if teams kind of, I guess, figure out how to defend this, because it seems to be like, honestly, like the success rate of lineout mauls right now, and I'm just kind of like looking at like this Malcolm thing. So it's really, I mean, the only hiccup of LA's game. Like we could just sit here and be like, yeah, we just watched them carve through Seattle's D a lot. But it's like I wonder if it's like at some point, like if you like at what point do you, like if you're awarded penalties, do you just start kicking to the corner? Because it's like you can get 5 or 7 instead of 3, right? But I think like Canadians in this game, Il Nicky played really well. He had a really high work rate. Like I said, it's like other than like there's a couple scrums where they came out on the wrong end, but overall they weren't too bad. He had a really high work rate. Nakai Penny had about 43 meters on just 3 carries, so he made the most of some of his minutes there. Barton, Sears Duru were okay. Barton helped set up Hadding's try, so that was good. Stevens also had a big carry on that led up to Cottrell's try. Him and Thomas, like, I mean, in the grand scheme of the LA Giltinis, there's a lot of Hollywood type stars that kind of stand out on that team before them. Doesn't mean they played bad, but just in the grand scheme of the game, they were just kind of quiet. LA's offense is something. I'm interested. Like I said, it's like I don't know, to kind of circle back to that discussion we were having earlier. As Mike Tyson once said, it's like everyone's got that plan until they get punched in the mouth. And like they're off to a great start, a couple of massive scores in the first 2 weeks, but I want to see what they look like after they get punched in the mouth too. So I'm not completely certain I'm ready to like hop aboard the Giltinis train, unless hopping aboard the Giltinis train gets a Ryan James jersey into Stu's hands. Then I'm all for it. We should just have him on the podcast. Can he be like the first guy, the first non-Canadian to come on the podcast? We'll just get Ryan James to do this, just so Stu can meet him. But beyond that though, like I kind of want to see how they react. And I guess they got the bye week now, and then Toronto. So Toronto on the road for the first game. So I think like that'll be an interesting one too. Kind of can't wait for that game. I think that'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, we talked to DTH that he was excited to play Toronto, and that was before we found out that
I'm excited.
He wasn't going to be able to, and then they changed it that he is going to be able to now.
Also, like, because I know Stu kind of dropped the little stadium note on his thing. The Coliseum, I am totally over the fact that it's probably way too big for MLR.
Oh my god,
it looks amazing.
It looks amazing.
Yeah,
it's the best stadium.
It looks awesome.
It's honestly the best stadium.
Seeing the players walk out with the call and like the Giltinis logos and stuff on the walls. Seeing like the players like in the Trojans dressing room, which also, like, if you want to talk about bad team names, Trojans is pretty bad. Like, you named your team after a group of people that are most famous for getting their ass kicked. Like, what else is a Trojan other than like the Trojan War? Like, that's like, who else? Yeah, right. Like, that
does not help your head. It's adding to your case.
Yeah, like that's all it is, right? So yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like me personally, I'd rather be called the Giltinis than the Trojans. At least Giltinis are.
The Trojans were real.
Giltinis are 2-0. Trojans are like like the most historic loss in war battle mythology history. So it's So I mean,
I was saying that if it comes to pass that no MLR team can be named after an alcoholic beverage, or there's a limit on like what you can call the team.
Alcohol beverages are named after MLR teams. It's the orders.
Yeah. Either way, if the Giltinis are forced to change their name, I'm like, well, they're already playing in the Coliseum and they start with a G. May as well call themselves the Gladiators.
That'd be pretty cool.
I mean, that would be cool.
It's pretty good. All right, guys. Well, let's get into our predictions for next week. As it stands, Stu and I are tied with a record of 4-7-1. Woof. And Derek currently has got us by 1 with a record of 5-6-1. First game, Derek, who do you got? New England versus Utah.
All right. So this is proven to be the most apparently. I think I said a few podcasts back that this would be the most unpredictable season.
Yeah, this is also New England's very first ever home game.
I don't think out of any like MLR media that I've looked at, I don't think I've seen someone above 500. Like as far as like their picks, I don't think like it's just been an absolute crapshoot. New England versus Utah. Oh my goodness. Where are they playing? Who's the home team?
It's New England's first ever home game.
Oh, New England. You got to do it. Get the storybook then. That's the only reason they got to play at home. You have to win your first home game. Storybook.
The Arrows didn't.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, it would be nice, Dan. Like, fine, Dan. Dude, Utah, if you don't.
I think I will. We'll see if Stu can convince me otherwise. Stu, who are you picking?
Well, I know that New England are the first team this season to have a washout victory, and I know that Houston did put the money against Seattle. However, I think that
it's Utah they're playing.
I know. I'm saying that I don't think New England are facing a team of the same caliber.
Oh, okay.
When it comes to Houston as it does to Utah. Utah have shown, especially against the Arrows, that if they can get their side jamming together and clicking, then they can just rack up the tries. So, I'm going to be like gentleman's agreement in this thing and say that after they beat the Arrows, I think that they can also beat New England as well.
I think I'm going to have to agree with Derek. I like what I saw in their limited time with the ball. And I think that there is going to be a very fired up crowd, no matter, but don't know what the crowd size will be like. I think that the guys are going to be excited. They've been building towards this for 2 years now. And if Bowden Waka is back, I don't know what his injury is like. If he's back next week, he's a game changer. I think the halfback pairing is starting to click a little bit better. I'm going with New England.
All right, then.
All right.
Well, I was gonna say, you guys realize though, the only reason that I have that extra win on you is because when we were debating the San Diego Austin game, I asked Dan who he picked and then just picked the opposite of that. So, I mean, Dan, you should have gone Utah, I think, but whatever. That's fine.
No, I also did it because I remember that.
So. I know you're picking DC in this one, so we'll be different.
All right, Derek, DC versus Toronto.
Toronto. I, as the one person on this podcast still wearing.
Oh my God, this is the 4th time you've mentioned it.
I'm upset, man. Keep the faith.
I don't even have the Arrows logo.
Dan, honestly, just type in the DC. I know how you feel. Just type in DC.
I'm not going to tell you. You're gonna have to go on the Google Doc and see what I wrote.
Everyone, just to let you know, Dan has picked Old Glory DC because he has.
I'm picking Toronto. All right, Derek.
I'm gonna pick DC.
Oh,
I'm making on the wrong person right now.
Let me explain my logic.
No, you don't need. There's no need to explain.
Shut up, Derek. Okay, this is my logic. Either I'm right and I get a win in my column, or I'm wrong and the Arrows win, which is therefore also a victory for me. So either way, I win.
Okay, Dan, you're forgiven. This reverse psychology nonsense needs to stop.
I mean, we'll be double sad. That there is a point. I see a part of his point is if the Arrows lose, we also lose in this, and I'll be double sad.
So
okay, wow. This next game.
I mean, the Arrows are going to win, and we just make fun of Stu for being wrong.
That's true.
Yeah. You can mock me for an entire 30 seconds at the next podcast.
I mean, most of our podcasts are us mocking each other for 90 minutes, anyways.
Okay, mocking me for 30 seconds for that. And then bringing it up at every other.
And then we'll bring up Giuseppe Detroit playing on that.
All right, boys.
Yeah, I know. I was waiting.
Get back into focus. Come on. Rugby ATL versus San Diego.
Who's home? San Diego?
Rugby ATL.
Rugby ATL.
I'll go first. I'm saying San Diego.
Okay.
Yeah, you know what? I think I'm going to have to take San Diego too. I don't think we've really seen full-fledged San Diego yet either. But yeah, I don't know. I think I got to go San Diego here.
Well, having seen their game this week, I mean, they did win, but their second try did come from an Austin mistake. I think that they may...
And arguably, Austin could have had a penalty try to win the game.
Yeah. So I think that... But the decisions that they did make showed the like folding under pressure, such as like the forward pass and going for a line out when they could have easily taken the points. And also, this is back in Atlanta. Atlanta will want to, again, assert that they are, the best when they're at home. So I am going to pick Atlanta.
So far, Derek and I have picked all the same, and Stu has picked the opposite. He's going for the wild cards. All right. This is actually going to be an interesting one. Austin versus Houston in the Texas Cup. Who do you guys have?
This is the actual most difficult of the 4 games.
See, I don't think it's difficult to pick. Like, I think, yeah.
I'm picking Austin.
I'm going Austin. I don't think it's that. I think Austin has played better against more difficult opposition to start the season. And I mean, we'll see what their injury kind of status looks like. But depending on who's playing, maybe they get some guys back. But I don't know, like losing to the Free Jacks 32-0 does, and like Dan said, it's like not being able to punch in tries up 2 guys, not even being able to kick for points. Like it's I don't know. It's not sitting well. I'm taking Austin. They can keep the Texas Cup in Austin.
Is it only this game is a Texas Cup, or is like the reverse fixture included?
I think they just swap it after every game.
Yeah. Fair enough. So, yeah, I think that obviously Houston have a lot to learn after last weekend and need to be able to actually click. And by click, I mean score. At the same time, Austin has shown the ability to not see the game out correctly. I mean, we can like debate whether it was a penalty try or not, but the fact remains is that they were leading for the majority of that game and then blew it in the final 10 minutes or so. And this will be Austin's third game at home in 3 in a row. That's the word I was looking for. Third home game in a row. I think this is going to be a tight fixture, and I will go with Houston.
All right. Well,
I'm just going against you guys for
that's fine.
All these.
That's probably a decent strategy, realistically.
I mean, yeah, if we're wrong, we're right. That's you're basically banking on us being wrong.
You know what, realistically,
apart from DC, because if DC's wrong, I still win anyway as an hour.
Sorry, that's fine.
You know what this means? We're all going to be like 1, 2, and 1. It'll be weird.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? We again, with the guilty teams being the surefire bets the last 2 weeks, that's been taken away from us.
Yeah.
So it'll be a really interesting week of rugby.
Oh, they all are.
Yeah. So thank you very much, guys, for listening to the episode. We really appreciate now that MLR is getting back into it, people are listening to our episodes again. We've covered the first 2 weeks of MLR now. So if you want to look back at some of our interviews with some of the players before we went to the training camp and see how they were feeling before and just kind of learning about their journeys into rugby, be sure to go on to any of the platforms that provide podcasts and leave us a review. Let us know what you liked, what you didn't like, and make sure to follow us on all the social media platforms we're on. Follow us on YouTube. We are putting out videos with all of our episodes and some little clippy clips. So, gentlemen, we've got a long weekend here in Canada with Easter to recuperate from last week's loss and hopefully celebrate a Toronto Arrows first win of the season.